kick a market vehicle. So
right now, those 10 that I listed, those are the 10 items that I see in there for right now, or at least at the time that it's built. And that takes up all 5 days.
What's the size of this, David?
The total facility?
Not square foot, give me some dimensions on it. How big is this bay?
Just the base.
Just like width, length, yeah, the bay.
Just the base.
Yeah, that's it for starters.
They're typically 17'4" for a bay, and I think it's 72 feet deep overall.
So
The service bay.
Each doorway is 17?
No, not each doorway, but the width of the center line to center line of a bay is 17'4". So the doors are 14 feet, just as a reference. And the service bay is 20 feet. And I'm trying to go from memory here. I don't have it scaled out.
Thank you.
17'4" is, I'm sorry.
That's good.
No, I was just, I'm gonna get in line.
Go ahead.
Okay, when you talked about, all I heard a lot about in the meeting was drive-through bays, so these trucks will be backed into here, they're not gonna just pull through.
They'll be back. Something will be pulled through to line up to exit with its front facing out, but the opposite side can be backed in so they're both facing out.
Okay. Okay.
And that's pretty customary.
Okay.
All done.
The last forum meeting that we had, which is a community activity we have every other first and third week, one of the members of the Webster Township, who was considering buying building a fire department, had been to a conference, I think it was in Dallas, recently. Invited and went to represent the township, I'm assuming, or himself. He didn't really say, okay? But he said one of the real concerns were that because of additional studies of the health of firefighters, that the cancer rates have been exploding because of the contaminants that are in our world today. And when they go in to fight a fire, they have all this variety of different materials that are burning. They breathe them in sometimes, even though they have the apparatus. When they decontaminate, they have the issue of that as well. And that there's a great emphasis anymore of when they do come in, that they have an adequate space, a proper space, that they have able to decontaminate as rapidly as possible. Do you feel this design does that?
Yes.
So you would say that with this design that you have, it's at least the top of the way that fire departments now are, this design, to help firefighters have healthier lives? Can you say that?
Yes. Yeah, the way we have the decon set up is specifically aimed at that concern, and it's not a new trend, it's an ongoing thing, but it's getting more emphasized. And we start with that as the top importance. How do you fight a fire, how do you get to your apparatus, how do you get out? But when you come back, and that's when you look at that plan, you see the decon, you have a direct access into it from the outside. So you
and it's separated a long ways from the living quarters, and that's
you want it as far away from that transition zone I talked about, going from hot zone to cold. You want to be as far away from that as possible, and that's
why you were saying the mezzanine would not be a good spot, because it would still have that same air coming through in that area there.
And it operates under a different environmental system, so that's all under a negative pressure. So nothing that moves in there air-wise is going to push itself outside of that room. It's going to be a negative pressure. So that space is, and actually, this isn't the first version of it. When we were in our last work session with the chief, we enlarged that a little bit because it's also a work area, not just the plain simple decon space. You're dealing with contaminant or things that are less than, more hazard than normal, so that's where you'd go to do it. Whether you're repairing a piece of equipment or something, you'd go into that room and do it. But primarily, it's you return from an incident, you go into that door, you clear yourself of contaminants in gear, you go right to the extractor, you clean your gear, so your gear and its dirtiness isn't going anywhere in the apparatus, it goes off extractor right into the PPE storage.
And I guess my question to the chief, do you feel that that adequately does the same thing for your firefighters that you have responsibility for, that this plan does?
Certainly, I've seen a number of stations that are done this same way, and trying to keep, the worst contaminants as far as away from the administrative area as possible. We're not going to keep it 100%, but reducing that possibility as you get closer to the admin and bunk room areas, there's less and less contaminants on an individual. So this certainly does it. It gets us much closer than we are today. I think this works out really, really great here. So, and it's, as David said, this area is not just our bunker gear, so you don't look at it that way. It's all our saws, all the equipment, everything that we use. We would wash our fire hose in this service bay. That gets run through another machine, gets all the contaminants off it. It goes down into the drain, so it's way over on that end of the building, and then we hang it over there or lay it out, whichever we decide to do, so that it stays over there until it dries and gets put right back on the apparatus. Then the guys that are doing it, they don't always take their boots off. They're out there cleaning stuff, and so hopefully if they walk across the bay, more and more of that stuff comes off the bottom of their boots as they get across the bay and into those admin areas. So this does it for us.
Brett, did you have anything to add to that? I know that's an area of your focus.
Sure. And I think maybe the transition area too, like you mentioned, Chief, with the boots. So that transition area typically would have an abrasive mat on the floor, so it's just kind of one final checkpoint before you get to the residential or the admin. Also another opportunity for a hand sink to wash, and just encourage as much personal cleansing as you can before you break in that cold, safe zone of the station. Sure.
Have you heard what I mentioned, that there are more cancer rates now with fire department firefighters?
Yeah, they're 200-300% higher than you and I.
Well, I think it's important. We do our very, very best. Even if it is a sauna, to decontaminate their skin or whatever.
Yeah. It's a very, very minor cost. You insert one of those for $2,000 or a little less. So it's a minor cost. It's an anomaly for people to see that. What is that for? Well, it's part of what's happening in trying to create safety and health for the firefighters.
Thank you.
So David, this is like 3 times as expensive as modifying the current station.
I kind of remember that, a factor like that. Yeah.
3.5.
I think we were 2.5. Depends what version, I guess. We did a lot of versions of that.
Understood.
But you're right, it's in that 3 times zone.
October 24, 2017 is 3.5 million.
Is that a page in here somewhere?
Yeah, one of the things they have to ask for.
I didn't look through all this.
When you look at those numbers, I think they're meaningful, but take into account that we have escalated much greater than the normal 3 to 5% per year. I mean, it could be 30% since we started this in 2014.
My point, though, is of all the things we were trying to improve or better, weren't most of those things covered on the expansion for 1/3 of the cost? With the exception of the access of bays from both sides.
Yeah, I think when we showed that in one of our last analyses of what are the possibilities of that site, and I can't remember exactly what the deficit or deficiencies were, but we were pretty good shape in terms of accomplishing a lot of the programmatic things. Wasn't 100%, that's for sure, but there was some positive parts of it.
Thank you. And this is just really expensive. We can solve the things we need to do for much less than what this is. I mean, this is laid out very well. I mean, I appreciate the thought that's put into it over the last month, but am I the only one that thinks this is high?
No, I think,
I mean, I was floored when I opened the mail envelope on Saturday morning.
Well, when you think about the process that we've gone through, and you think about the other reasons that we feel that 8140 is not adequate, it's certainly going to be high. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. We know we own that land. We don't own this one, this land
It's
here.
not the land cost.
Well, even.
I mean, that's not even in
That's
here.
part of it.
That's not even in here.
what's the escalation been at this past year or so?
I don't know that precisely, but I'll say it's been in the 10% range. And it's kind of a moving target. You know, recently we've heard they hold steel bills for 3 days because they don't want to take a chance on what the price might be on the fourth day. There's a lot of uncertainty right now.
That's why I wanted to provide some of the financial information, just since we hadn't looked at it in a while, that, you know, our ability to bond is limited to $9.5 million. So doing something at the $7 million level means that we're basically almost using our entire bonding capacity. And that's if we do a voted millage to support it, that still counts under our 10% cap. So that would be taking up a large chunk, and then, like I said, our estimates were about 2.3 mils for $7 million.
What's in there?
217,000. The bond payment's about 500,000 a year. And so we just ran that with some of the, and then compared our millage rate with that to the other millage rates in the area. But I think the biggest concern is just that it would eat up almost all of our cap, so if something happened and we had an emergency, we would literally have like $2 million of bonding capacity left. And that doesn't even include city offices at all, so that's a concern.
So the reason I asked the questions about the stormwater management, David, I want to make sure that all the costs are in this number. Is there's a limited, if I remember right, there's a limited amount of impervious area that the entire thing was set up to be when it was sized?
I can tell you what I did. As far as the site, we have all the paving, asphalt and concrete, walks as well as drives. We have landscaping, we have generator, we have the carport, and we have an antenna. And then we have a number, an allowance number for site stuff, utility type thing. So right now it's just a number because we don't have any real plan on doing anything other than going into the basement that's there. So, and if I'm not mistaken, that's $200,000 what we have allocated towards whatever we have to do towards it. So it's 700, I think it's 700 total. Yeah, 700 total, 200 of that was site utilities, just as a number.
Where's the antenna?
It'll be on the building.
On the building.
Yeah. That way we wouldn't have to put standoff distances and secure items, crashed areas and that sort of thing. If you look at it, it's not going to make a heck of a lot of difference, but when you look at the bottom, you know, the building itself is what, 4.8, call it 4.9, and then all the other things which are necessary, they're not things you can get rid of. But you can reduce some of those, and I wouldn't suggest that you do, but I'm saying that there is the real possibility that construction phase owner contingency 7.5, which is not a big number, it's only 365,000, that won't be that much. Unless there's an Indian burial ground or something you got to remove, or you've got some really terrible soils or something. For the new building, you're not going to experience 7.5% of contingency use. It'll be more like 4%, but still, that's not a big number, but it's going to be different.
David, is there a way to estimate, like utility cost? Like, DTE, gas. Right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking this would have a much higher DTE bill than our current station, and I know that's DFE's responsibility in the way that their contract structured with the township, but we still pay a third of that.
We do an operational cost budget also, and it takes into account those sorts of things, servicing as well, not just providing utility, but how do you maintain the building.
Right.
We do that budgeting aspect too, called it operational budget.
Oh. So you would provide.
I didn't do that.
Well, no, you could provide that like in design or something.
Yeah, that's, once we start doing system selections, that's when we do it.
Because there's a kind of cross there, because a newer building, you can build it a lot more energy efficient than
Right.
an old one.
But this is also substantially larger.
And you have landscaping in here?
Yeah.
We have enough of a landscape there.
You spoke.
Me, I didn't. I'm just curious, so I'm gonna ask this question. If you were told you had to cut the price in half, what would you personally choose to change?
Me personally.
Or what would your advice be to change professionally? What would your advice be to change if you had to cut,
I'd
if you
leave
just had
the
to cut in
sheriff
half?
where it is, on Main Street. I would pinch things a little bit. I'd look at a shared use of the training facility somewhere else. I'd look at what could we add from a physical layout standpoint. We could add the 2 other dorm rooms later. We could add the service bay, but it wouldn't be as functional as this is now. I'd look at what can we change. We're not going to be able to reduce material selections to get to that kind of number. And when we look at this project, square footage equals dollars, right? But it's more than that. It's what you build it out of. So when we look at a budget, we go, it's good, it's better, it's best. So in this category, we're using the better.
Okay.
So if we went to good on everything, it'd probably be 10% less. We'd have to take something off of this plan to get to half. And that would be I would not feel comfortable doing that. That would be a chief kind of a thing. And I already understand the vision that he has for what a main station should include. And that's what this represents. But at the end of the day, if you have to make those choices, could we do it? Absolutely. You could do that. You'll just end up with compromises, and you have to prioritize what goes from better to good, if not everything, and then what do you eliminate? That would be an exercise, which is, we call that value planning. A lot of times it gets too far down the road and it's value engineering where it really hurts. But at this stage, the question, how can you make it less? It becomes a value planning exercise. It's a lot more palatable. So it's a lot less disappointing, but it's still not easy.
Right. Thank you.
Michelle?
I know when we met, when I stood in for Justin and Courtney, one of the questions I asked was building up and possibly so that you'd have a space left that maybe could be on the tax rolls as a different development site. Excuse me. If the sheriff's department stayed downtown, can it be built vertically so that a developable space was left?
Absolutely. It wouldn't be significant by doing 2 stories, but getting the sheriff elsewhere would be significant. That's probably taking 90 feet. Even though it's a small footprint, it takes 90 feet from the width of that lot. But the second floor, it really is just the fire service area. You can't do anything with the bay, obviously.
Right.
So you could maybe knock off 30 feet of that width, which is not that significant. But if you had somebody going in there and said, I need this, we could work to that number. If it needed to be 200 feet, or whatever the number is, we can maneuver it a little bit. There's still a lot of room on the site to maneuver the building.
Thank you, because that leads into another question, if I could ask. And this was something else that came up and we didn't, get a chance to go into it, but apparently the building and the bays were flipped at one time. From just a layout so that you get that bookending between the building next door. If it's flipped, do you still get can you still accommodate access and circulation so that the building could be closer to the front without the bays actually being up that far?
The reason we did that though, Michelle, was to keep them away from Eaton Court residents.
Okay, that's what I wasn't
We
sure.
wanted the bays as far away from the people living there as we could get them.
Okay.
So that was why that choice was made. I'm sure we could do it either way, but that was the conversation, was keeping them away from Eaton Court.
Okay.
And isn't the acreage, isn't it a 2 acre minimum on Dexter and Arbor? So I don't know if we would be able to.
Well, we can answer that next time. We're at
Yeah.
2 minutes to 7, so if council needs to use the restroom or whatever, let's do it so we can start our meeting. David, thank you for your work on this. Fred, thank you as well.
Thanks for having us.
Okay. Hopefully we were able to answer more questions than Craig.
Well, yeah.